Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Air Tycoon Online 2. Um, so last episode came out yesterday, and only one person commented. That's okay. I mean, I don't have that many viewers right now, but hopefully, maybe soon that will change. But basically, yeah, the only person who commented said that they preferred um, Air Tycoon Online 3, which is pretty interesting. Um, I guess that's kind of expected because at first I enjoyed Air Tycoon Online 3 more and more as it had, higher complexity um, and that sort of stuff. As the commenter mentioned in his suggestion that he preferred that Air Tycoon, and I completely agree with him. But at the same time, once you figure out all those complexities, um, the game just becomes uh, solved once again, I guess, for lack of a better way to say it. Um, Once again, you might have figured out, the ideal strategies to use while playing the game, which is what happened to me at least. And then, in addition, because it was a more realistic game, it was also, I guess you could say, more boring or more stale or like um, less variations or like less viable methods you could use to play the game. For example, in Air Tycoon Online 2, you can use the cheap Russian planes as a very effective start. But at the same time, if you have less time and can't make so many routes, you can get an almost as effective, if not equally as effective start by only using long haul planes. Sorry, once again, a little interruption there. Um, but yeah, what was I saying? Once you've kind of figured out the game, yeah, uh, I think the more fun and less realistic starts to become the most interesting game, unless the game is so difficult or so advanced that you don't figure it out very fast, which is the case with Airway Sim. I've been playing that game a lot in the last 2 years, um, yet there's still a lot about that game I haven't quite figured out or haven't quite learned ideally, so it keeps drawing me back to that game. Um, Air Tycoons, on the other hand, I feel like the best way to play them is mostly, uh, for me at least, kind of solved. It's kind of done deal. I already know what the best way to play these games is, which is fine because they're still fun. The only issue I have with that is the fact that my train of thought is lost. Okay, whatever. Never mind. Anyways, as you guys can see here, yeah, I was distracted by the fact that I was thinking about what routes I wanted to make, so, I kind of lost my train of thought in terms of speaking. Yeah, unfortunately, I'm a terrible multitasker, so live commentary might not be the best idea for me. Maybe I should do scripted in the future. Who knows? Um, but yeah, as you guys can see here, we have tons and tons of unused planes, and we're just making tons and tons of new routes. The reason for this is obvious. We're looking to expand, get more money, all that good stuff. And yeah, that also takes a lot of slot requests, as you guys can tell. Um, yeah, I think the fundamental limiting factor in the amount of routes you can create in Air Tycoon 2, as we were playing here, I I believe it is slots. I believe the true limiting factor in how big you can grow a company in this game is slots. It's just impossible to get bigger than a certain point because you cannot have enough slots in major airports to get bigger. Um, Now, will I get to that point? No, because I don't have enough time to do that many slot requests. But in theory, right, if you wanted to grow as fast as possible, first of all, you wouldn't make so many long haul routes. Long haul routes I only make because I don't have time to make more slot requests. But if I had time to make more slot requests, I would run all 124s until um, once again, there would be some point where you physically cannot request slots fast enough without gemming, in which case I would switch to longer and longer haul airplanes and finally taking the longer and longer haul routes, which I believe become less and less and less profitable um, as your company grows. I don't know exact numbers here, but the ROI times in this game, or if you guys don't know what that means, it means return on investment time. To explain further, it basically means how fast an airplane can make the money of how much it costs. So, for example, a Tupolev 124 costs 21, or what does it cost in this game? 18 million, I believe. And it can make 18 million back in about 18 turns. So its ROI time is 18 turns, which is extremely, extremely fast. And I believe the short haul planes in this game have the fastest ROI time. No questions asked, basically, just period. If you want the fastest return on investment, which is, of course, what you want, because the faster your on investment, the faster you can possibly grow. Because of, basic math, I guess. Um, yeah, you really want the fastest ROI time, and that will be given to you through planes such as the Tupolev 124. So yeah. Anyways, with that said, I'm gonna wait a while until we have more slots and continue this video because, as you guys can see, all the major airports which I wanted to expand from most, besides London, are mostly filled. So we're gonna be right back in a bit. Also, guys, I forgot to show at the beginning of the episode. I should really make a habit out of this. Here's my financial report: 120K at 1968. I believe if I even just go through the screenshots on my phones at this time, I'm usually making around 3 times as much if I start at the beginning of a world. But given that I haven't done that, it's unrealistic to meet the same expectation. Um, Plus, by this summer, I probably expect this to be around 200K. Um, it doesn't look like this game has a history of the turns, which is a bit unfortunate. I missed that from Air Tycoon Online 3. If any of you guys know if there's a way to see past management reports, please let me know, or financial reports, I mean. But this was as high as 160K, as you guys can clearly see from the uptick. Yeah, I think there's a bit of a problem with my airline in the sense of the prices are high, so I only make a lot of money on the upturns. The other thing is my economy classes are too small because I was, I guess, more used to a different system of Air Tycoon Online 3, where I'm pretty sure these business classes would be reasonably sized. But yeah, it looks to me that business classes just need to be larger in this Air Tycoon. Um, yeah, my DC8 11s even. I mean, look at this, 60% and 100% occupancy. So that's ridiculous. If you take a look at the 151 to 11, so that means I deliberately shrank that where my DC8s are slightly better. Oops, I don't want 2 aircraft. But if we take a look at my DC8 62s, these things have better economy class balance for sure. So I should aim to try and match that in my DC8 11s in the future. So I'm going to go ahead and order some more DC8 11s because I need more anyway. Leased, of course, because leasing is better. I'm going to go ahead and re-expand this to the 23% so percent it was originally, because original settings in this game seem to be ideal. Whereas in Air Tycoon 3, the default configuration was usually a bit too much business seats. So yeah, now I'll be right back with some more slots. Alright guys, well, it feels like forever later. I think it's finally time to restart our recording here. For me at least, for you guys, it's instantaneous, but yeah, it's taken a while to request all these slots and such. I need, or want at least, to create a whole bunch of new routes. Yeah, the slot requests, I do feel it. I believe you get 25 in Air Tycoon Online 3, and you only get 20 in Air Tycoon Online 2. And if there's anything I want to take away, like fun points for this game, it is that exactly. Having just those a few fewer slots makes a world of difference in how this game feels to play. With 25 slots per request, it's just about enough so that it feels like you can play almost constantly if you're like slightly slower at creating routes. Sometimes you can play for almost 10 minutes before you use all the slots you've just requested and need to request more, right? And then there's only 5 minutes left until the next slot, so it's really easy to kind of just pass that time. Maybe take a look at a few more of the routes you might want to make, and then those few minutes pass, and you have more slots, and it's time to make some more routes. But with 20 slots, you finish making your routes in uh, 6 or 7 minutes for all your routes, and then you've got nothing to do, and still like 7 or 8 minutes to kill, and it's just a bit too long of a time to kill without doing anything. So usually, if you're me at least, you just log off and look for something else to do, um, to pass the time instead. And I think that's a bit unfortunate because I think it would be really great if they just reduced slot request timers in general, or added the option to purchase more, like 5 of them, um, just to balance it with the plane request time. I understand the plane request time. I think it's actually a really reasonable restriction, to prevent the size of everyone's airline to basically going to infinity. Um, the slot request timer will never quite have the same effect in reducing airline size permanently because it increases the growth size, initially in the first 20 years of the game. But then after 20 years, aircraft replacement becomes a big problem. In fact, I think it becomes basically the biggest problem for most airlines, including mine, um, because there's simply so many planes you have to replace. So you have to deal with replacing planes, buying enough planes to both replace planes and make new routes if that's what you want to do. And I think that's a more interesting challenge, actually. Um, yeah, it's less like it's more of a realistic problem for an airline to have, of having to replace their aircraft fleet rather than not being able to acquire enough slots in airports in a given time when there's plenty of slots available. Um, what would make sense is if you had to request slots and it took longer for airports which were becoming more slot restricted. So as slots were more and more rare, I guess, as they're running out, they would become harder to get. That would be, I think, another way to make the slots a more interesting point in the game rather than a frustration, more than a strategy, something to strategize around, which I think it's unfortunate that that's how slots are in this game, is just basically just a frustration for um, players to deal with. Yeah, I think there would be a ton of ways to handle them much better, and I've just named a few off the top of my head. But anyways, I'm not here to try and complain too much. I'm just here to play the game, um, and to open routes, as you guys know, as that is what I do. And there are a ton of routes still to open. Hopefully, I requested enough slots off camera to go ahead and make all these routes. There's still a bunch left. Um, I mean, the way I create these routes is I don't have like a list or something which I'm reading off of and just remembering that to go and make all these routes, which I wrote down. I basically do this by just picking a big city in the world: New York, London, LA. Um, you guys got the gist. And then just looking around the world for cities it's connected to. And thanks to a lot of experience playing airline simulators, I basically have a really good idea of where to find pockets of cities, um, with reasonably large cities, like um, all of Europe, basically. And I know which cities in Europe are pretty big, and like even the smaller cities, which are like 150 business and tour, respectively. Those cities are plenty big when connected to the ultra big cities, which is really nice, like Kiev, Donetsk, Chinasau, Bucharest, Budapest, these Polish cities, which I have no chance of pronouncing correctly. All those cities are basically perfect examples of cities which you can use a smaller plane like a DC8 to connect to with a really large city and easily fill it up. And with a stopover, which we'll be messing with as soon as those come out, um, you're able to connect even much larger than that, uh, or much smaller cities, or use much larger planes. So, for example, if you wanted to do New York to one of those 300 combined business and tour cities I've just mentioned, like Budapest or Chinasau or Donetsk, right? You can use something like an MD-11 sized aircraft, a DC-1030. What's another similarly sized aircraft? A 777-200, a 767-400. Um, these 350-ish seater aircraft can really, really easily be filled um, on a lot of these routes. So yeah, that's just like something to keep in mind when you're using stopovers. So I could stop over like this. Obviously, I can't because I don't have a stopover capable plane, but I could do something like this, and it would so easily fill one of those really large aircraft I just mentioned, which is really nice. Um, Anyways, right now I'm gonna make a few routes to Seoul. Don't know why, just some of the bigger ones. I am running out of slots from New York, and because of the slightly systematic ways I like to do things, I kind of want to finish off most of the obvious New York routes first so I can forget about the city for a while. Um, Also, of course, New York is the best place to use DC8 11s from because they have enough range to reach just about everywhere important. While from somewhere like Atlanta, which is really nice hub in this game, um, this was changed in Air Tycoon Online 3, where the size of Atlanta was significantly reduced, which is sad because in real life, Atlanta is a huge passenger hub. The reason it's a huge passenger hub is simply because Delta is based there, and for not much other reason. Otherwise, it'd be a much more modest city like it is in Air Tycoon Online 3, which is pretty good, I guess, in terms of realism. Um, but I like it being a big hub because I like more big hubs. They're easier to fill aircraft on. Um, and yeah, I think the way like Delta at least operates around um, what am I trying to say? Around their hub in Atlanta is actually kind of cool. Basically, the idea is Atlanta is not in the center of the U.S., not even close. If you guys take a look at where Atlanta is in the U.S., it's like off to the bottom and the side. But as a matter of fact, and I'll show you guys in a sec, Atlanta is very close to the population center of the U.S. Most of the population in the U.S. lives around here, right? Along the East Coast, across, what's this area called? I want to call it the Midwest, but I'm not sure if that's correct. But I feel like this is the Midwest. I don't know. This part of the U.S. Not on the coast, but like around Chicago and stuff like that. And then a lot of people, of course, live along Texas and Florida and along the like southern Pacific coast, I guess. Not very many people up here, but basically, essentially, what you get is the geographic center of all the people in the U.S. is somewhere around here. Um, yeah, I believe it's extremely close to Memphis, if I remember correctly. Um, which is pretty interesting, because I guess the reason why Delta is based mostly in Atlanta is because Atlanta is simply the biggest hub or biggest city um, that is reasonably close to the population center. Um, that's also why you'll find that the biggest cargo hubs in the U.S. are also around here because it's near the population center. I believe, I can't remember exactly where they are based, but FedEx is Memphis, right? I'm not going crazy. That FedEx is mostly based in Memphis, and then UPS is based in another one of these cities somewhere, and I call it UPS, UPS. But um, yeah, unfortunately, my memory is not doing me very much justice right now. But anyways, I'll be right back once I have some more slots, since apparently I need them. So be right back in a bit. Hello, guys. Welcome back. It's been a couple more hours in real life, and I don't know what I was talking about before, but I've noticed something relatively interesting. Um, and that is the fact that I am getting sleepy and it is 8:30, 8:43, correction. Um, that is really early, and that is also really unusual for me. Usually, I do not get tired early whatsoever. I I basically can like stay up until 3 4 a.m. and I just can't go to sleep. and then, I don't get enough sleep the next morning because I slept too damn late. That is a recurring theme for me. Yet now I don't seem to be getting that problem, which is fantastic. Um, and that's because for spring break this year, for the first time in a while, I've done some traveling. I went to Costa Rica, San Jose, actually. Wow, it has literally no demand, and the airport is called Costa Rica instead of San Jose. That's pretty embarrassing here, Tycoon, but maybe it was called that in 1968. Who knows? Um, but yeah, it's basically 2 hours ahead of my time zone. And jet lag seems to have started to fix my sleep schedule, along with me just getting up earlier from, doing activities and stuff when I was traveling. So that's pretty nice. Um, because I'm basically still stuck in that 2 hour ahead time zone. Um, it should be 10:30 p.m. by then, and that's probably when I'd be looking to try and head to sleep because I was doing a lot of outdoor activities, hiking, swimming, surfing, that kind of stuff. Yeah, really, really lovely country, Costa Rica. Um, and yeah, the fact that doing all that fixed my sleep schedule is pretty funny because I was kind of in desperate need of a sleep schedule reset because, um, going to sleep at like 2 a.m. every day and then getting up the next morning to go to class at like 8 a.m. is not good for a human. Um, yeah, I do not recommend it. Especially like once, twice a week, yeah, it works, whatever. Maybe even 3 times a week, you can probably manage, your body is young. But once you start pushing past that more and more times, eventually it'll catch up to you and you'll just need to sleep, or you'll get in a perpetual state of tiredness to the point where you don't even realize you're tired because that is just how you feel, even though you'd probably feel better if you had, a little bit more sleep, but you don't because you're a fool. And that is me. So, yeah, anyways, on another note, we gotta fix our um, unused aircraft in this game and hurry up and schedule all of that. So let's see if we can go ahead and find homes for these guys. Uh, wow, missing a surprising amount of good airports. I thought we were missing Dublin there for a second, but no, we weren't, because that would have been quite surprising. Yeah, I wish cargo in this game was better, because cargo is such a cool feature in other Tycoon games, but the ROI time of cargo planes is just longer than other planes, so there's no point in ever using them. Uh, at least in my opinion. Um, yeah, like why would I ever use a plane which takes longer to make its money back than a plane which doesn't, even though there's a lot more people competing for the same routes? It's still better to use passenger planes. When it looks like all the good passenger routes are taken, it is still more worth it to go to the ends of the earth to find another random unfound cargo route. Yep, that's still likely going to be more profitable. By the way, these routes I'm making now, Atlanta to Manchester, New York to Manchester, and like Birmingham and such like that. These are fantastic routes. Manchester, Birmingham are around 350 combined business and tour, which is a really, really good amount. Glasgow, um, almost 400 in some cases, which makes these cities really, really nice. And in the future, I'll quite easily be able to connect these up with really, really nice, large aircraft, which is awesome. The only shame is I'm taking these with non-stopover capable planes, and I will never redo these routes because it takes too long to redo scheduling. Instead, I'll just find alternate routes. For example, Birmingham. Instead of doing New York and LA, I would do Houston, stop over in Birmingham, and then to some city in Asia instead. And Houston's a similar enough size to most Asian cities, so that it's a somewhat balanced stopover route. So that's good. Um, Speaking of stopovers, the Illusion 62M, the first stopover capable plane, I believe in Air Tycoon. Yep. It's coming out next year in this game. So tomorrow sometime, on I think it's 1969.3, if I remember correct, which is really soon. That's in less than 24 hours. So I look forward to that. Anyways, I've finally used all my aircraft. I'm going to start saving money for the release of that airplane because it's such a nice airplane. Um, yeah, that's basically it. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. I'll see you guys next time. Peace.